What happens when we get regressed through hypnosis? Can we tap into our past lives? Can we remember things such as abductions? Well, today we're going to be talking with a truly gifted hypnotist, Lesley Mitchell Clarke, to talk about her experiences with taking people into this state and learning about their past lives and experiences are held deep in our subconscious. She will teach us how can we tap into that. I'm Tony Sweet with Truth Be Told. Pleased to welcome to the Truth Be Told studios for the first time, hypnotist Lesley Mitchell Clarke.
Leslie!
Hey, Tony! Oh my God! Thank you.
Right. The crowd goes wild. Well,
Oh
thank
my
you.
goodness.
Thank you so much for being here, and I'm excited to have you on the show. I've interviewed people that has done research on therapy and hypnosis, with abductees before, but I've never really had somebody that actually had the opportunity to work directly with not only just abductees, but past life regression and all this stuff. And so I'm excited because a lot of people really don't understand what hypnosis is, because like we were talking before the show, my mother tried to quit smoking, and she had several sessions of hypnosis, but it never worked. But she was like, well, I really don't want to quit smoking. So when you work with people such as past lives or abductees or any type of hypnosis, do most people come to you that are ready for hypnosis, or sometimes does it take a few sessions to realize the benefit from the hypnosis? Because if they're not ready, they're not ready.
Indeed, Tony. Well, it's kind of a mixed bag. And I guess after all these years, if someone comes to me and say they're coming with a specific issue, say, not smoking,
Right.
weight loss, by the time I've done a pretty thorough intake with them, I have a pretty good idea if they are going to be receptive to the hypnotherapy process. And it is true that I guess we say, around 30% of people have a difficult time being hypnotized or can't be hypnotized. And that is simply a control issue, really, because what hypnosis is simply a state of deep relaxation. And it might surprise you, hypnosis is ancient in the extreme. It's it's by our reckoning, it's at least 6,000 years old.
Oh,
but if
wow.
you do accept the idea of previous societies, Lemuria, Atlantis,
Right.
Hyperborea, whatever, then I think it really does go back, excuse me, to our very origins. The Egyptians used it, and the Greeks really used it. In fact, they had what they called sleep temples that were that combined several modalities. But the thing about the sleep temples is the first thing that happened when a patient showed up, they were given a big opiated drink. So we don't
that helped the hypnosis. Yeah. They didn't
we
have to
don't
do
do
much.
that anymore. No, they didn't have to do much. We don't do that anymore, except of course on special occasions. No,
Right.
but I'm kidding.
And we don't
I'm
talk
kidding.
about that. Shh.
No, we don't talk about that. So, and then oddly enough, after being given this, mild hypnotic, as we would call it today, the Greek patient would be walked through a maze. And they found these in Egypt. They found these other places too. And what would happen is, as they would have a priest doctor on either side of them, walking them through the maze. And at various intervals, there were little, I guess you could call them little hidey holes or little spaces in the wall
Right.
where other priest doctors would like pop out and say something positive that was specific to that patient and like whispered in their ear. So in a way, in a very different way from what we do now, they were putting positive messages into the subconscious mind. Now, basically anybody that works professionally today, we are Adlerian hypnotists and hypnotherapists. Joseph Adler, who was a contemporary of Freud and Jung. Most of what we do in the contemporary milieu of hypnosis and hypnotherapy is Adlerian.
Hmm.
And that being said, it's a very gentle, benign kind of process. So what I do is I essentially, but just by talking, I relax the entire body of the client.
Right.
Generally, I use progressive relaxation, meaning I start from either the top going down or the bottom going up, depends.
Mm-hmm.
But when the physical body is relaxed enough, this is where the magic comes in. When the physical body is relaxed enough, we are able to pull aside that curtain, if you will, that separates the conscious mind, which we, walk around with and make our decisions with, from the subconscious mind, which is where all of our behaviors are created. It's where our memories live.
Mm-hmm.
It is where all the behaviors are formed, the phobias are formed in the subconscious mind. So information, both good and bad, positive and negative, is taken into the subconscious mind, and behaviors are formed as a result of it. So when we can get in there, by we, I mean, hypnotherapists or other
Right.
practitioners, Reiki masters, there are a number of adepts who work with the subconscious mind. But when we can get in there, we can literally reprogram someone's mind in a positive way, in the sense that we can disrupt, almost like an electrical circuit, we can disrupt negative behaviors or negative ideas or old ways of thinking or past traumatic memories.
Right.
So that's basically what we do. We help the person to release everything that they don't want and replace that with what they do want.
Mm.
And that's how mainstream hypnotherapy works. Regression is a wee bit more complex.
Okay, let's well, we're talking about more modern, but when it was back in the Greeks and the Romans and the Egyptians, it's not like my mother beat me when I was a child. Let's get rid of those feelings. So what's your theory or
What
what's
were
your
they
thought?
releasing?
Yeah,
What were they
what were they
releasing?
Yeah.
Well, I really think that just like people today, they had anxieties,
Okay.
they had fears, they had depression. I think people have not really changed that much in a long time.
Okay.
I mean, look at the lower half of the United States.
Right.
It's fixated in a certain time period. People have not changed
Right.
dramatically from a couple hundred years ago. And I think that is in fact true all the way around. So I believe that the Greeks and the Egyptians were dealing not only with let's say mood disorders, for lack of a better term, but I think that they also were working heavily with the physicality of the body, illnesses that could not be diagnosed or treated, but that responded to hypnotic therapy. And of course, those would probably be things that are stress related. If I were to make a guess, I bet they were dealing with a lot of stomach problems,
Mm.
fibromyalgia, aching backs, headaches. I think that people probably physicalized their problems and their fears and their worries in very much the same way that we do today.
Well, what's funny is, nowadays we always do these past life regressions, and like, I was I was Cleopatra in Egypt. Well, I wonder who they regress back to. You can't say I was Cleopatra if you're already in the Cleopatra era.
Yeah, well, no kidding. And the thing is, I got to tell you, Tony, after years and years of doing this kind of work, and not just mainstream hypnosis, but certainly past life regressions, interlife regressions, etc., I have never regressed one person who would have been notable in the sense of a big historic figure.
Right.
I've regressed people who maybe worked with so and so or was subordinate to so and so, but these kinds of uh, dramatic claims, I would have to lift an eyebrow. I'd lift my eyebrow more, but it's drawn on. So
Mine's Botox. No, I was kidding.
I'm just kidding. I have limited mobility here, so work with me, Tony. Work with me.
Well, I mean, you
Uh,
said something that you could change somebody's mindset in a positive way, but what about, can they do it in an opposite way? Can somebody change it in a negative way through hypnosis?
well, that would be certainly a
Non-ethical,
real
but
perversion of this, healing modality that's been
right,
around forever. But I'm not going to say that things like that are impossible. For instance, we in Canada here, it's just recently been exposed that at the University of Montreal, they were carrying on all kinds of bizarre experiments about mind control that
right.
involved some perverted version of hypnosis. It involved, hallucinogenics and God knows what else. And if they were doing it at the University of Montreal, it probably had to be everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
in the 70s. I think that's the time period we're really looking at. But yes, there could be a perversion of anything. In fact, you may be aware of this, but advertising is
Oh yes.
in my opinion, a dark use of hypnosis. Now, also in advertising, they look for people like me who are also neurolinguistic programmers. In other words, one of the things I do is find out how to communicate with you best
Right.
to cause whatever positive change you want. But in the world of advertising, how can we manipulate these people when they're at their most vulnerable?
Mm.
That's what you're going to find. Like my husband always points this out. Like at 11 at night, they start to the advertising slots start to pummel dad with
Right.
car ads,
Right.
and all day in a very sexist sort of prehistoric way, they're targeting cleaning supplies, to women and diet aids and cleaning supplies. And then on the weekends, and I think this should be illegal myself, they pummel children.
Yeah.
And the children are so vulnerable. They see something. They're in a light state of hypnosis all the time anyway. So
Right.
they see anything and they're highly suggestible. So, that's so in answer to your question, um, we see the dark side of hypnosis every day in the worlds of advertising.
Mm. So one thing that I did one time, I did have a past life regression. I
Mhm.
wasn't. I wasn't really. Now I could told you I'd love to do a session with you, but I really was saying I'm pretty ADD, so my attention span is like bird, squirrel, all that stuff,
Mm.
um, and so I did do it over Zoom several
Mhm.
years ago, and it was with one of my hosts. I own a United Broadcasting Network. I own it, and we have
Mhm.
several shows podcast on my network. So, Shar Margolis, who's a psychic, her sister
Oh, I
does.
know Shar.
Yeah,
I know Shar.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. She does a show here, and her sister does past life regression. And so she said,
Mm.
"Here, let's have my sister do one on you." And I said, "Shar, you're wasting your time." And so I said, "But I'll try it. I'll try it." But I did start going through the process, and I did start seeing visions, but
Mhm.
when you start seeing visions, it, how do you know that it's just not you making a vision up versus,
Fabricating.
yeah,
Yes, well, in any kind of regression, the images first start to come and they feel like a movie or they feel like
right,
imagination.
and which it did.
That's how it starts. But that means the process is beginning. And you just have to kind of let go of that critical part of your mind
Right.
and allow the information to just sort of flow in. It does feel like imagination in the
It did.
beginning, but what that says to me is you were beginning a process. My guess would be, and with all due respect to Char's sister,
Oh, she was great.
you
Yeah.
probably did not have a long enough, deep enough
No.
induction.
Yeah. No,
That
it was
that
fairly
takes
short.
Well, that takes a lot of patience, you see
Yeah.
what, and especially anyone who tends to run a little hot, little ADD, a little,
Right. Yeah.
nervousness, what have you. I just really have to take my time to get you into the zone. Now, you can do a regression if someone is in alpha state. So that's not super deep. In other words, I would spend time, but I don't have, you're not unconscious, but it's more desirable if you can get the person into what we call the theta state, which is below, it's kind of below sleep. Sleep is the delta state,
Right.
and theta is a state of vibration that triggers a lot of awareness and other stuff to happen. But I would love to take a shot,
I
Tony. I
know. I would
would
love it.
on Zoom.
I
We
would
can
love it.
do it.
Yeah,
We can.
but what's the benefit? Seriously, what's the benefits of doing a regression for your past lives? Do we bring a lot of karma? Do we bring a lot of past trauma, physical, mental, from past lives to this current life?
We can, Tony. Again, it's a very individual matter, but we can come in with all kinds of baggage from past lives. And one of the things to keep in mind is no matter how evolved we are, we generally incarnate in soul groups. So it's not uncommon, like a repertory company, like the cast of a repertory company, for us simply to change roles within a extended family unit.
Right.
And of course, we can incarnate as either male or female, and that's an idea that is very difficult for some people. But I'm hoping now, as we move ahead and we begin to understand transgender people and accept them, that we can understand that what's the big deal? We come into different bodies anyway. Why are we so worked up about this? Right. And because that's the reality of it. Now, many of us tend to favor being either female or male. You know what I mean? It's not to say that we have equal experiences of both genders, but certainly we move back and forth. Now, what's kind of interesting is when people come to me for a past life regression, it usually happens around the time that they are ready to make some type of change in their life. Usually they're contemplating a positive change. They want to make a big change. So that seems to be a big motivating factor. So what I generally do, unless I've been specifically requested to look for a certain life in a specific time period, we put it out there that the lives that are going to pop up are going to be exactly what that person needs to hear now. And they don't always figure it out right away either. I'll tell you a story about that in a minute.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
But that's really the thing. It's a little bit unusual for me to specifically suggest that we go to a certain time simply because someone has a feeling about it or some fragmented memories. Much more common is for someone to come and say, I'm unsettled, I've had a few dreams, I'm in transition to do this or that, and I need some direction. That is much more the common experience.
I love that. Yeah, like I said, I've met people that have really changed their life, and even direction in their life by having a regression.
Oh yeah.
And I think as we're on this planet and in this particular time, we're always like, what's our purpose? And what's our purpose? What's our purpose? And I feel that through understanding, if you believe in past lives, because some people don't, that you can find your purpose through past lives.
Yes.
I did a psychic reading with Sylvia Brown before.
Oh, bless her heart.
I know. Yeah.
Bless her sweetheart. I'm so sorry she's left us so
me too.
soon.
Me too.
But oh, God bless you for being able to meet with her. What did she have to say?
Well, that's what I wanted to talk to her. This was in the 90s. So she was, still in her game and before Montel Williams show and she did tell me that I had many past lives. and
Mm-hmm.
and she said majority of the past lives were actually very religious or spiritual people. And I'm curious to know, and I'm going to ask you about that in a second, but one of my last times around, I was a soldier and was shot in the back. She goes, "Do you have a back injury?" And I said, "Well, yeah." I said, like right now, my right in the center of my back constantly hurts, but there's never anything wrong there. I mean, there's no
Mm-hmm.
reason that it should be hurting. And even the chiropractors
Yeah.
are like, I don't know. So she said that's one of the reasons, and that's one of the reasons you don't like uh, wars and
Mm-hmm.
controversies and this and that. Da, da, da.
Mm-hmm.
But but the religious side, yes, I do. Even to this day, I was a truth seeker. I'm a Sagittarius, and I'm very fascinated with religions,
Mm-hmm.
all religions, and just how people live with their religion, and it fascinates me. Um, so and that was her take on it. That's what she said that she
Mm-hmm.
saw. Um,
Well, that's I would remind you that for centuries and centuries, the world's most intelligent people went into the church
mm,
because that was the only place where you could really be an intellectual
right,
and
right.
live that kind of life. I can that's such a strong impression. I mean, I could see you with a clerical collar. I can see you as a I mean, that may seem odd to you, but I think that rings, that rings very true.
Oh,
And
that's nice. Thank you.
many smart people through the eons, when we've come back, we've also gone to places where we felt we could help people.
Right.
And one of the places where you could give alms to the poor and treat people for illnesses and exorcise the demons, that would have been the church, or I mean any number of churches or temples. I'm not specifically confining that to like a Christian experience, of course not. But I think a spiritual life is something that was very attractive to intelligent people during what we would call the Dark Ages.
mm, nice. That is nice. I love that. This is usually the time I ask people in the chat room if I call them my co-host, and to see if they have any questions. And
Oh,
so
great.
we have a couple questions. Robert wants to know, "Hi Tony, I'd like to know how a hypnotherapy is able to unlock a memory that has been blocked or erased."
And by blocked or erased, I assume you're referring to something that would happen from an external source. In other words, if we're talking about experiencers, some type of
Yeah,
missing time,
right.
do you think that's what we're talking about here?
Possibly, and that's one
Well,
thing. Just so people know, we're going to be getting into abductees soon. So but yeah, that would be something that.
okay. Well, it is my belief that no memory block is impenetrable.
Hmm,
And I have no doubt that for various purposes, probably most of them just benign, so that people didn't get confused between their waking life and the things that happen at night. I'm not sure this is always with some, dark intention. But in my experience, I do not believe that any memory block, whether we place it ourselves or whether it's placed upon us, is impenetrable unless there's been some type of brain damage, unless we're talking about some type of amnesia that is
right.
physiological in origin. And further to that, one of the things that I've noticed in the years of doing this work is over the past, I'm going to say 5 years or so, I have started working with many, many individuals who believe that they were part of the secret space program, if you will, or
Hmm,
the black ops, or
right, right.
there's a combined military ET international force. So and those guys and gals are waking up too. And what's come to light from what many of them say, and also what my colleagues have said, is the governments who were using memory suppression to, in order to suppress the memories of the experiences these soldiers had, these enlisted persons had, was not designed to last longer than 20 years.
Oh wow.
They just they just effed everything. They didn't see the need to do it, so they didn't do it. So there are many people now who have been participants in these diverse and huge programs. I mean, there are trillions and trillions of dollars missing from what should be the U.S. Treasury, which has all gone on to this kind of stuff, which has been hidden from the American public, from the world, and in a very immoral kind of way, because not only we're led to believe that like the moon shot was the last time anybody was there on the moon. I mean, it's all been for show. We have two parallel space programs. We have the one put in place by Harry Truman and Eisenhower and the powers that were in place at that time, and we've got what's actually happening. So what I'm experiencing now, as far as an influx of people who are coming to me, are many men and women who have been involved in this, in some aspect of this program, and simply the memory suppression is disintegrating.
Wow. And to follow up on that, Amisha, and this is actually a good one because a lot of people don't have the opportunity to find a hypnotherapist in their area, or even just a qualified one that can handle this type of situation. But she says, is it possible to unlock your blocked memories by yourself? And I'm going to add on to that, in a healthy way.
I think that it is.
Okay.
I think that you can put yourself into a meditative state and give yourself the suggestion to go into these uncharted waters in a safe way, and things will bubble up. I also think that you can do that before sleep. You can simply give yourself the suggestion that, say you've got missing time, so you can give yourself the suggestion, I want to dream about what happened between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. on so and so a date, and say it 10 times. Give yourself the post-hypnotic suggestion, psycho-cybernetics, give yourself the suggestion, go to sleep. And in a high percentage of times, you will have distinct dreams that will be almost like waking dreams, that will be filled with memory, not distorted in the way that dreams often are. So yes, I believe that is true. In fact, Shirley MacLaine told me herself that she doesn't often go to have past life regressions. All she has to do is go into a meditative state, and her own mind will take her through the Akashic records.
And I remember she's kind of the one that really brought the past life regression to the mainstream.
She did.
Yeah.
She did. And I was very blessed because she was affiliated very strongly with my mentor and teacher, Dr. Georgina Cannon. And I believe Georgina still hosts on her website, the chat room, and still contributes to Shirley MacLaine's projects in some way. But yes, Shirley MacLaine would fly in from LA to Toronto to see Georgina Cannon back in the day, which is how I had contact with her. So
awesome. Well, it's Ease 417 says, don't you think it's equally possible to hypnotize someone into remembering a secret space program that didn't exist?
Well, I've got to tell you, yes, there are people who are having, delusions and separations from what we would call linear reality. But again, by the time they come to me, I've had a chance to have a very in-depth conversation. And I've got to tell you, this is something that people may not realize, but this type of phenomena, the experiencer phenomena, crosses all lines, socioeconomic, racial, cultural, religious. I mean, you would be surprised, I have college professors, quite a few of them, judges, lawyers. Now, these people haven't come out, of course, as experiencers, because of course they're fearful for their jobs. But the phenomena itself is widespread. We now estimate, in MUFON now estimates that perhaps 14 million people have had close encounters, and
Oh my
that's the
gosh.
population. That's the population of New York City.
That's
So
yeah.
these are the kind of numbers that from the research programs that we're doing. I've been involved with Kathleen Martin's Experience Your Research project,
Oh, I
which
love
is
love
under the
Kathleen.
MUFON umbrella, and I've also been involved with Edgar Mitchell's Free Experiencers, and the information points to some very, very high numbers, Tony. Some very high numbers.
Well, if everybody's just tuning in and wondering who we're talking to, we have the amazing hypnosis expert, Lesley Mitchell Clarke. And we're going to go ahead because we have 20 minutes left and we've been talking about past life regressions. But I want to talk about this amazing book right here. A true story. A true story. We love true stories.
It's true. It is a true story. It is, I promise you. Thank you so much for putting that up there. And I just wanted to say that I co-authored that book with a wonderful gentleman named Wes Roberts, who is in fact a college professor. And I was very blessed to have the benefit of working with him for many sessions. He was very committed to exploring his reality, and so we had many sessions together. So it's really the story of Wes and how he first came to hypnotherapy, his not understanding what was going on, his insomnia, his paranoia, all these different things. And we were able to have many sessions in which his memories were recovered. He was able to process his memories and sort of emerge at the other end as being completely comfortable with who he is and the specialness of his life and his work.
Well, that, I mean, because again, I've talked to some abductees before, and it fascinates me how sometimes it takes many years to finally start seeing these visions or seeing some of their encounters come to the surface. How do, when people come to you, are they past that period of I know something happened, I just want to go deeper? Is that where that when they finally get to you, or is there some people that come to you and then discover that they've been abducted?
Well, I wish it was the former, Tony.
Oh, wow.
But what is much more common is, these dear people have been through the complete gauntlet of psychiatric and medical interventions, because we're often talking about people who have, well, we're in Canada, we have socialized medicine, but
Right.
They have pursued mainline solutions to something incomprehensible, and so by the time they finally get to someone like me, I'm like the last chance Texaco,
Right.
So more often than not, these poor souls are completely burned out. They're not mentally ill. They're not insane. They've been given a clean diagnosis by psychiatrists, but no one can explain the phenomena or the how shall I call it? No one can explain their incidence of high strangeness. So a lot of times when people come to me, they really feel that there is something terribly wrong with them. That they are having psychotic delusions or whatever, even though they might have marks on their body. They might have little scoop marks. They may have, they might have
Right.
a little ball might have come out of their sinuses,
Right.
but still they don't believe really that they are sane. Now, as I don't know if I mentioned this or not, but I probably should, because I bet this will come up in Canada and throughout North America, as far as I know. I am, as a hypnotherapist, even a master hypnotherapist, I am not legally allowed to work with people who have been diagnosed with a mental illness. And by a mental illness, I mean something profound like
bipolar,
psychosis, schizophrenia,
right.
Uncontrolled bipolar disorder. I mean some borderline personality disorder. I mean serious stuff. So one of my main one of my main, I should say, tasks whenever I interview experiencers, potential experiencers to come work with me, is I have to really be convinced that there is no overriding profound mental health issue.
But how do you determine that? Because in modern society, well, modern society, if you went to downtown Granola, where I'm from, Kansas, and you said I was abducted or I was this, people are going to think you're, pardon the term, crazy. And so how do you determine as a hypnotherapist what's real and what's not real? Because what might be real in my mind may not be the true reality.
Mm-hmm. That's absolutely true. And I guess when you come right down to it, Tony, it's a subjective decision.
Right.
And
Okay.
it's kind of ironic. It's almost a catch-22, right?
Right.
We're told, no, you cannot deal with anyone with a profound diagnosed mental illness. And yet I have to know pretty much everything about symptomology
Mm-hmm.
of any known profound mental illness so that I can, in fact, identify it as opposed to treat it. So, and also, I should probably mention, I do have a rather lengthy history in mental health care. I began working as a psychiatric aide in a
Oh, wow.
very
Okay.
draconian state mental institution when I was just a freshman in university. That's how I put myself through university, was working on the night shift in
Mm-hmm.
the in this very gothic kind of place. And later I became, through the hospital program, I became a psychiatric technician, which is kind of like a psychiatric nurse. There are a few things we can't do, like intravenous injections, but we can conduct
Right.
therapy.
Right.
So I've had a few different parallel careers, but through most of my adult life, I worked in rehab, particularly drug and alcohol rehab,
Mm-hmm.
and periodically. And when I was really in midlife, um, I felt that I just hadn't connected with my purpose, that there was something else that I had to do, and I just wasn't doing it. I thought, well, should I go back to school? Should I get more medical credentials? So my husband, bless his heart, just out of an impulse, uh, bought me a past life regression, not with Georgina Cannon, but with someone else who was a student of hers. But he bought me the past life regression. And not only was it insightful as as a process, as what I learned about one or two of my past lives, but what was really important is I knew I can do this. I can do this, what this woman has done. I don't know if I did it in a past life. I but it's all familiar to me. I can do this. And so it wasn't a fortnight before I actually found the Ontario Hypnosis Center and signed up to go back to school and get my basic certification. So I was, even in midlife, directed to, I think, a much more profound path than anything else that I would do. And I reconnected with it. So in a
Oh,
way,
that's
past
great.
life regression had a profound effect on my life.
That's it just a different approach.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was Micah in the chat room. That was actually one of his questions. So thank you, Micah, for that. I want to get
Thank
back
you, Mike.
to Wes Roberts.
Mm.
Was he one of the first people that you worked with encounters, or
He was really early on,
yeah?
not totally early on. I've been at it for about 15 years, so I
Okay.
guess it was about 12 years ago, I think, doing this specific work, that he came to me, and he was recommended to me through a psychologist that we both know.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said, he was a college professor, and
Right.
he had only partial, sporadic memories of strange things. He had missing time. He had
Strange
he had
marks.
oh he had everything going, and the poor man couldn't sleep because I think because he was afraid of what might happen. Now,
Right.
remember, sometimes these experiences are interpreted negatively, and they're not actually negative at all. In fact, I would say that the high percentage of ET contact is extremely positive,
Mm-hmm.
especially now. There has been a period of time. Again, I'm going to speak briefly about the Truman Eisenhower years and their agreement with the Zeta Reticulites. But there has been a time where a lot of genetic material was harvested from human beings by Greys.
Hmm.
And this is a reality. This is a thing that happened. They were given license to do it in exchange for technology, and there was a kind of an agreement that ran its course. So, although yes, disturbing things still happen, I think the most disturbing things that happen are the result of our own secret military ET
Right.
collaborations.
Right.
I don't think we need any trouble from, I don't think we need any help from any other civilization to be completely horrendous to each other.
Oh yeah.
We don't need that
It's like
help.
a
We can't,
second
we
nature.
have to we have to start taking responsibility here, Tony. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? If we've got all these contacts going on, it's all sub rosa, there's no landing on the White House lawn at this point, and the information that I'm getting is that the evolved ETs that want to help us, they've become completely disenchanted with any kind of government involvement, and have decided that it's going to be, that disclosure is going to happen through gifted earthlings
Mm.
who have psychic abilities. And in my feeling, it's what the ETs are looking for, whether they're Pleiadians now who want to bring out about change,
Right.
whether it was the old gray bastards, whatever, whoever it is, they are looking for people who can communicate telepathically and psychically. And that's one of the reasons I think that we see lines of heredity in the abduction experience, because they actually, or certain species actually, either they regard us as cousins, we have a lot of that, they feel they're our relatives, so they want to help us, they share DNA with us. But I think that what we're really talking about here is we have several things going on. We have a military thing going on,
Mm-hmm.
which is dark and of questionable moral value. We have encounters with enlightened beings who would like to help us, but still they want us to pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps. And we do have some incursions by some ETs with still a kind of a dark agenda who would like to harvest genetic material, but that's far less common.
Right.
And, one thing I will also throw out there is it seems that in midlife, many experiencers stop having the physical experiences where their bodies actually, pass through the roof or walls, and they get on a craft and they go, but they seem to have more what I would call etheric experiences, which are much more like astral projection or bilocation.
Right.
And I think that many sophisticated species have learned long ago how to remote view and send their etheric bodies to specific places. And so not everything we see is actually about physical space travel. I think that's true sometimes when we even see craft that look translucent or whatever. I think they're
Right.
being manifested, not necessarily physical in our third density in the way we think of it.
And I think, we've talked about this many times, like Bigfoot and many UFOs. It's like, how are they here and then they're gone? And and it makes more sense and less energy and effort to just do more interdimensional travel, or the projection and different types of ways to communicate. So yeah, it definitely makes more sense. Well, did he did he ever figure out why he was abducted? Why was he chosen? Was his family? Because you always hear a lot of family members.
Yeah, his
being
family, he had several family members that had, that had,
same
some
experiences.
high strangeness. Now, it seemed because it seemed that Wes before, because we also did an intra-life regression and past life regression, but it seemed that before he came into this physical life, that he made a kind of a plan for himself where he was going to be, part of disclosure,
Mm-hmm.
and he was going to incarnate on planet Earth for that reason, but he had had many other lifetimes in other planetary systems. So he's almost uncomfortable on Earth,
Hmm.
if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't quite feel like home to him, and it never really did. So the beings that he is contacting primarily are beings from a planet where he believes he lived other lifetimes.
So, oh wow! So he did finally see that and his other
And
lifetimes.
understand that
Yeah,
he finally really got that. So, and it
that's
explained,
great.
why he was so uncomfortable and why he had such a connection. And one thing I should maybe mention at this point as well is it seems as if uh, we are in a rather large soul group with many types of bipedal uh, humanoid beings, because when I
Right.
do bring people into the interlife, which, as I mentioned, is where we explore what happens when we are in, so-called heaven after we leave our bodies and before we come in. One of the common experiences that people have is coming before their council, which is not disciplinary or hostile or accusatory.
Right.
The council comes in to help you understand and process your last life and make suggestions about the next one. And on these councils, people will invariably tell me that they see beings that are not human, of not fully human in our sense of the word,
Hmm.
beings with elongated skulls, beings with other, nothing too far out, nothing too crazy, but beings that we apparently can easily integrate with by incarnating into some related worlds.
Hmm. Wow. Well, we only have about 4 minutes left. I can't believe this has gone
No.
so far. First of all, will you please come back for a part two, because we have so much more to talk about. First of all,
Oh man, I would adore to come back for part two, as we say here in
do
Canada. You better
into.
believe it. Part two. I will be here.
And real quick before we go, my sister, because I tell people all the time, and people in the chat room probably like, you've told us before. I know. Hold up. But Lesley hadn't heard it. But my sister,
I haven't.
all of us, when I was a kid, saw my mom, my two sisters, my brother, and I saw a UFO. And then, my mom and I talked about it. This was back in the 70s, so I don't really remember it because I was fairly young. But my mom and I talked about it a lot, even before she passed away. I think a month before she passed away, I brought it up, and she remembered it. And then after my mom passed away, my sister and I were talking, and she said, yeah, Mom actually called the McConnell Air Force Base in Wichita, Kansas, and they actually came down. So the Air Force did come down and did some research. But she said, but that night, the night of the sighting, she says, I went to bed. I had some weird dreams about the UFO or aliens or whatever. And she said, when I woke up, she said, I had my socks on, and my socks were completely soaked like I had been outside. And I was like, bing. I was like,
Yeah. Oh man.
I was like, I think I in my head, I didn't say I think you were abducted, but I was like, I wonder, and I think she might have been abducted, because that was, just from the experience of seeing it, then her dreaming about it, and then, having physical wet
Absolutely.
socks.
Well, I'll tell you, Tony, that in my opinion, there's almost no such thing as a single encounter. In other words, the fact that you saw a craft, that it was shown to you,
Right.
to me indicates that if I got in there, there would most likely be more.
Wow. I can believe that. I can believe that. And what? And another thing, when people see spirits, do you believe sometimes spirits can be aliens or extraterrestrials? Do you believe that possibly could be true, or do you feel like they're complete separate entities?
Well, I think that many groups of ETs are completely capable of traveling in their etheric bodies, which could look diaphanous like that to a spirit if you were to see them.
Right.
They wouldn't necessarily look totally physical. And I do hear that sometimes these beings are translucent. I can see through them, but they're talking to me. And so I would say that is certainly possible. Boy, I think, Tony, almost anything is possible. I'm not going to say no to anything, to any human experience that anybody tells me about. I've learned a long time ago to just keep my mind open. I don't have the answers. You know, I didn't reinvent the wheel by coming up with, by working in regression with experiencers. I adapted past life regression techniques that were taught to me.
Right.
And I think anything is possible. It's an infinite universe, and it's an ultra-dimensional universe. So we're also seeing beings that are in other dimensions, not just other galaxies.
Oh, well, this conversation feels like it's just getting started, but unfortunately, we have to end. But tell people how they can get your book.
Oh, thank you so much, Tony. Intersections is available on Amazon.com or Amazon.ca. Wherever you Amazon, you can get it. So that's Intersections. And if you'd like to get a hold of me, I'm always happy to answer questions or chat with people, even if you don't know if you've had an experience. You can always reach me at Lesley, Lesley, at lightworkhypnosis.com. It may take me a minute to get back to you, but I always do get back.
Well, it's been a pleasure, and I can't wait to have you back to finish a conversation.
Thank you.
I don't know if finish is always the correct word, because there's always more conversations to have. So
we can have a very long conversation over many years, punctuated by some absences. That'll work fine.
Well, I want to thank you, and I want to thank everybody in the chat room for being my co-host today, asking great questions. And really you can please go and buy this book and support Lesley. And if you have your own experience, maybe if you want to find out a little bit more about a past life or even a possible abduction, please reach out to her. Maybe she can, get you in and help you out with that. And thank you for joining Truth Be Told, always every Friday. And, don't forget, on Mondays we have Robert Hensley. He does the Minuteman Report. Bonnie Burkett, she's going to be doing, is doing the Wednesday Truth Be Told of transformation, from crystals and yoga and healers and all that stuff. And then, of course, you have me every Friday. So, but please subscribe, share this show, and listen to us, all of our podcasts, Apple, iHeart, Spotify, everywhere there's a podcast. But until next time, I'm Tony Sweet for Truth Be Told. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
You bet. Bye.
This has been another episode of Truth Be Told. Thank you so much for watching. Recorded live at UBN Go Studios in Burbank, California. Join us on social media. Facebook, Truth Be Told Radio. Instagram, Truth Be Told Paranormal. Go to Truth Be Told Worldwide for more information on upcoming shows. This has